Hello and welcome to Education Today. I'm Jonathan Zish, School and Community Relations Coordinator for the Armstrong School District. First, I'd like to thank everybody at WIUP-TV for airing this broadcast. Today we're going to talk to leaders in the field of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. We're also going to encourage parents, doctors, and teachers to attend an informative ADHD public forum. The forum is from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. May 4th and May 11th at Lenape Heights Golf Course and is free and open to the public. On the show today, we have Dr. Michael Glue, who is Coordinator of Special Education and Pupil Services at the Armstrong School District. We also have Sherry Schaefer, a behavioral health nurse at Children's Community Pediatric Center at Armstrong County Memorial Hospital. Thank you both for being on the program today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yes. Would you please tell us a little bit about your position, starting with Sherry?
I am a nurse practitioner and clinical nurse specialist in child and adolescent mental health. I'm employed by Children's Pediatrics, and I manage the majority of children and adolescents with behavioral problems who are clients of our practice.
Dr. Glue, a little about you, please.
Sure. I've been a school psychologist with the school district about 10 years, and this past year, my colleague Dr. Matt Pock and I have taken on new responsibilities as special education coordinators. He manages psychological services, and I mostly take care of pupil services.
Oh, okay. We're going to start with Sherry with a few questions. Would you please tell us what is ADHD and what are some warning signs that a child might have ADHD?
Well, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is truly a neurochemical disorder. It is a problem within the brain where there are not enough of two chemicals. One is dopamine and one is norepinephrine. Signs and symptoms can vary among different children. We know the classic hyperactive child who is unable to go to school, sit in his seat, pay attention, complete his work. He cannot follow frequent commands or prompts to do such. Then we also have the inattentive children who can sit in their seat. They appear to be paying attention, but they have no clue what page they're on. They have no clue what the teacher has just said, so their responses may be totally inappropriate to the topic. And they're both fall into the category of attention deficit disorder.
You mentioned a little bit about neurochemical, maybe it was the neurochemical theory. Would you please explain that a little more, in a little more detail?
Sure. In a nutshell, paying attention, self-monitoring our own behavior, being able to inhibit our impulses should be a natural response. It should not be something that we have to cognitively monitor. And of course, this goes along with developmentally appropriate stages of our life. I'm sorry. But it's a part of the brain that's called a filtering system. And this filtering system is modulated by two chemicals, dopamine and norepinephrine. For some reason, some of us just have insufficient supplies of those two chemicals. Therefore, the filtering system does not work as it should. We then are not able to inhibit our own impulses. We are not naturally able to select what we need to pay attention to, nor are we able to self-monitor our own behavior. Classic example, child tells a teacher, tells his parent, Mom, everybody was talking, but the teacher only yelled at me. In reality, the child honestly feels that way. He has no clue he is louder or wilder than the rest of the class. However, the teacher is able to say, there might have been a few others whispering, but this child's behavior was out of control. So the self-monitoring system is not natural for these children.
Since we're talking about the neurochemical theory, let's take a look at a computer generation of the human brain affected by ADHD and how certain chemicals can counteract ADHD.
What causes ADHD? To answer this question, let's take a look inside the brain, where brain signals are conveyed through a massive network of nerve cells. Messages travel through individual nerve cells as electrical impulses. However, between cells, there is a gap called a synapse. Here, chemicals called neurotransmitters create a chemical bridge that carries the signal across the synapse. ADHD is believed to be caused by low or unbalanced levels of some neurotransmitters, particularly dopamine and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters exist primarily within two important brain pathways, the dopamine pathway and the norepinephrine pathway. Dopamine is believed to enhance brain signals and improve a child's ability to pay attention, concentrate, and focus on tasks. The other important brain chemical associated with ADHD is norepinephrine, which is believed to reduce the impulsivity that negatively affects the child's decision-making ability. Norepinephrine may also dampen noise level and enhance executive operations.
Sherry, would you please take us through some of the major milestones in ADHD awareness?
For many years, the actual disorder of attention deficit has been described in the DSM-IV, which is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. And it is more or less the Bible for psychologists, psychiatrists, clinical nurse specialists in diagnosing attention deficit disorder. But the actual cause of the disorder was unknown. In 1990, Harvard University performed research using PET scans which show where energy is utilized in the brain. They were able to identify the brains of attention deficit from those without it. Now, the PET scans are very expensive and they do not show us level of dysfunction, therefore we do not use them to diagnose. But it was a landmark study demonstrating that attention deficit is truly a neurochemical problem within the brain.
Despite coming so far with awareness, how might you explain some of the myths about ADHD, such as people who believe behaviors are more related to willful acting out, student discipline, or poor parenting skills?
I believe there is still a lack of knowledge within our community. We know that in general research follows into practice. There's a lapse of about 20 years. And I think the more we have forums such as we're about to have now, thanks to the Armstrong School District, we will help hopefully raise people's awareness and be able to help these children.
How big of a concern is ADHD in Armstrong County, or generally?
Well, nationally, there are many studies saying that at least 3 to 8% of our population suffers from attention deficit disorder. Armstrong County is no different than the national population, so it is definitely a significant problem.
Dr. Glue, how about in the Armstrong School District, roughly how many students have ADHD or are diagnosed with ADHD?
Well, I can answer that precisely thanks to our school nurses who did a lot of work collecting this data recently for us so we could put this in perspective. And out of an enrollment of about 6,363 students, approximately 390 students we know of are diagnosed with ADHD, which equates to about 6% of the population.
Okay. Well, now if you take these together, do these figures suggest we are either over or under-diagnosing and treating students with ADHD?
Well, we are certainly falling within the national research guidelines that state 3 to 8% have attention deficit disorder.
Why is early diagnosis so important?
Early diagnosis is very important because children with attention deficit may not acquire their basic skills in school because they're not able to sit, pay attention, and demonstrate what we expect of children at that time in their life. Therefore, we see more school failure, we see problems with peer relations, they tend to be more impatient, more impulsive. They receive so much more negative feedback. You know, we often hear these children coming in telling us, I'm stupid, I'm mean, when in actuality they have a disorder.
When is the earliest a parent might see signs of ADHD, and how do you know it's not just normal childhood excitability?
Any diagnosis in behavioral health is based on frequency, intensity, and severity of symptoms according to the developmental norm. Generally speaking, research tells us that most parents will recognize their child is different by age 3. But generally, diagnosis on an average is made around age 8 because it's at that time that they are finding the dysfunction in school, community, or at home.
So what's your screening process at Community Pediatrics?
First of all, we begin by obtaining nationally researched screens. These screens have been found to show us problems, but they're not diagnostic. We do use the Achenbach screening forms as well as the Vanderbilt screening forms. We have both school and parents complete a form because diagnosis can only be made if there is a problem in more than one setting. We then score the forms, have the patient and the parents come in for an extended interview. At that time, we review the forms, we gather history, we gather family information, we perform the appropriate physical exam, make sure we're ruling out any other causes for attention deficits such as sleep apnea, thyroid problem, high lead levels, and then proceed with education for the parents.
That sounds very thorough. And sometimes I understand medication is a part of the solution. Can you tell me how medication works inside the brain of someone with ADHD?
Well, back to the neurochemical theory. People with attention deficit do not have ample supplies of dopamine and norepinephrine. The medication is able to penetrate that part of the brain and stop the breakdown of dopamine and norepinephrine for the period of time that it is in the body. Therefore, you enhance your own levels of your natural chemical for that period of time. Unfortunately, it is symptomatic care, it is not a cure. When the medication leaves the brain then again does not have ample supplies of those chemicals.
Now, does everyone need medication who has ADHD?
It's as any disorder.
Oh.
We have mild, moderate, and severe cases. Mild cases can at times be managed with behavioral interventions. At that time, we do work with the schools for contingency management, such as selective seating in the classroom, decreased visual stimuli on their desk, how many questions they may be getting at one time on a test or a homework assignment, and for some, that may be enough. However, if we are not, after we do the contingency management and the behavioral management, if we are not achieving appropriate standards, we then need to begin to talk about medication.
Well, now I'd like to turn to Dr. Glue for some questions about how Armstrong School District helps students with ADHD. Dr. Glue, what kind of help is there in the schools to support students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder?
Well, John, to suggest that children with ADHD present challenging behaviors for their parents as well as their teachers, that would likely be an understatement. And it's safe to say that children having difficulty paying attention generally also have learning difficulties too, and sometimes behavior problems in school. So there's help for the teacher in school, and as a result for the student. The teacher may refer a student to the SAP team, a student assistance program team comprised of a principal, a school nurse very knowledgeable about ADHD, a school psychologist, counselor, and teachers. So how the student is doing in school, have there been any problems with learning observed in school? These are some of the questions that would be discussed by the team. Does the student appear to be happy? What obstacles are in the way of learning, such as completing classwork, homework assignments, taking tests? And are there behaviors in school that present as a problem? And how does the student interact with others, with peers and as well with adults? So these questions may lead to further referral to the pediatrician and to Sherry at Children's Community Pediatrics for further evaluation of ADHD, which would then engage our screening. There's also an opportunity under 2 laws to make sure that we're providing services to children with ADHD who need them and who qualify for them. The first is under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, recently reauthorized, so it's IDEIA, Improvement Act, and students may undergo a multidisciplinary evaluation in which case a school psychologist would do some assessment of intellectual potential, find out where the student is working within the district's curriculum by doing some curriculum-based assessment, some measures of academic achievement, and also some behavior rating scales, etc., to make a decision or a determination as to whether that child might qualify under Chapter 14 of the school code, which governs special education, as a student with other health impairment, or OHI. If they don't qualify by that means, there's another route of obtaining accommodations, and it's known commonly in Pennsylvania as a Chapter 15 service agreement, but federally it's Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. And that means simply whenever a disability or manifestations of a disability substantially limit the major life activity, in this case learning, then a student might qualify for such services.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, there's a long continuum of opportunity for services. And I might add that most teachers, the far majority, are very successful in coming up with accommodations and interventions to support children without the needs for these mandates and these particular services. But
Now, from a student's perspective, what unique challenges are they going to face in class if they have attention deficit?
yeah, that's a good question. And more than anything, John, probably three factors determine the extent that a student with ADHD will or will not experience school success. And those are attention, and this is for all students in education as far as the literature goes, attention to task, instructional time, and a student's ability to maintain a success rate on individual tasks over time of 80% or better. So it would make sense then, when children are inattentive and not being able to pay attention, they're going to take instructional time away from themselves in some regards. They tend to daydream, they don't seem to listen or pay attention. They're easily distracted, they make careless mistakes, they don't finish tests, they often appear very disorganized, or as Sherry described, forgetful or lose important things. And perhaps most of all, they seem to want to avoid tasks that they know will require a sustained mental effort. So while they may appear to a parent or teacher to present as willfully oppositional, it may more in fact be something going on beyond their control that they know they can't cope with that task. Other children show symptoms of hyperactivity. They appear to be in constant motion or driven by a motor. They can't stay in their seat. These are the squirmers and fidgeters. They talk too much, or they appear to do so anyway. They like to run, jump, and climb, only at times and places that it's really probably not appropriate or permitted, and they don't usually play as quietly. When children show the impulsiveness Sherry talked about, learning challenges often include acting and speaking without thinking, blurting out answers, interrupting people, and having difficulty taking turns, and as a result, getting along with others. So those are some of the challenges, John, that they do face in school.
Now, when you see those type of behaviors, how does your office at the school help pediatricians and Sherry in the screening and diagnosing of ADHD?
Well, our teachers and our school nurses do that job. They spend up to 35 hours a week in school, with direct observation of children. They're before our eyes for a greater part of the week. So teachers see them quite a bit and can offer a lot of valuable insights. Teachers may complete surveys or checklists that Sherry mentioned of a child's behavior and learning patterns. Teachers can comment on how long symptoms have been observed and what has been tried so far to help, what has worked and what has not. This information is often useful to the parents, and there's a mutual benefit there. Sometimes parents are doing things that work well and can be implemented in school and vice versa. But I think the teachers do a good job working to maintain open communication with parents. Teachers talk every day to the school nurses, as well as the nurses who then speak on a routine basis to Sherry and the doctors.
Now, what can a parent do to help?
Well, just as the teachers do, the parents also are given rating scales for behavior, checklists, and these scales help the doctors and Sherry often differentiate among what are typical behaviors, like you asked about earlier, and ADHD symptoms or other coexisting conditions which often may be present, like ODD or oppositional defiant disorder, or mood disorders, or depression or anxiety. So parents can help by maintaining good communication with the school, teachers and attend school meetings to discuss progress on a regular basis. They know their child best after all, and they oftentimes have information that will help the school team better understand how they learn. And that way we can set expectations that are still held very high and maintain a high level of personal responsibility for the student while at the same time implementing and accommodating for their needs. Parents can also talk to the school counselors, psychologists, school nurses for referrals to places that provide parent training or simply to get more information about ADHD, like at Sherry's place.
That's good advice for parents. How about what are some easy accommodations that can help ADHD children, do better at school?
Just about all of the accommodations are not only simple and easy to deliver, but they also work well across environments, both in school and at home. But probably the overarching guideline would be predictability and structure. Whether it's a job at home or assignments in school, breaking things up into short working periods, individualizing instruction, of course high interesting tasks or interesting curriculum, and lots of positive reinforcement, patience, understanding. Other things that work well, John, close proximity to the teacher, using small groups for activities. As Sherry talked about, these are children that can't filter out otherwise distracting noises and movements in the room that other kids typically do well to ignore. But this is a problem for children with ADHD. Something we talk about these days are metacognitive skills, or self-mediating, or monitoring, teaching children to monitor their own behavior. Sherry talked about this. Using timers, for example, that go off after shorter intervals of working. A student can then check his or her own progress and kind of examine different obstacles in the way of learning. Assignments broken down into shorter segments, of course. An extra set of textbooks often at home will help. These children sometimes forget to bring books back and forth.
That's tremendous.
Or extra pencils and pens in the classroom. They tend to forget those. So if they come without a pencil, you just simply give them one. Homeschool communication notebooks that kids can write their homework assignments in and record, double check with the teacher to make sure they've got it right. And among other things, posting schedules, rules, and there's a lot more.
Very easy stuff. Not hard to do. And speaking of positive reinforcement that you mentioned, I think you both did a wonderful job of fielding the questions that are going to be very helpful for parents watching this program. We only have time for one last question, so we have to make it quick. Would you please tell me about the upcoming ADHD Forum on May 4th and May 11th?
Sure.
Who will be there and who will benefit? And
Sure.
Why should people come?
We're happy to have a keynote speaker. Her name is Elaine Gray-Gore. She has 20 years experience teaching in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. She's a clinical psychologist. She understands children. She understands development. And she's going to be speaking. We invite parents, doctors, mental health professionals, teachers, and the whole community basically to come and expand their insight into this disability.
Certainly. Well, that's our show for today. Sherry, thanks for being with us. Dr. Blue, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
And we certainly do want to invite everyone to the two forums, which are May 4th and 11th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Both forums will be at Lenape Heights Country Club on Route 66, just outside Ford City. See the Armstrong School District website for more details. I'd also like to thank Barb Keller, who teaches television production classes at Ford City High School. Her students did an outstanding job as today's film crew. Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District and how we are on the move, working with the community for you and your children. Until next time, have a safe and enjoyable week.
restored the core reading and math curriculum, teachers received extensive training on the Plato learning systems, which included full-day sessions as well as building-level support utilizing technology mentors. Through the Plato learning systems, teachers created specific learning pathways for students to maximize learning opportunities and began to analyze ongoing assessment information to make instructional decisions to ensure student success.
By now, you've probably heard about Act 72, the new Pennsylvania law aimed at lowering property taxes through slots revenues. Armstrong School District is sponsoring an April 14th public forum on this very topic that could be valuable to you. The district's Act 72 public forum is scheduled for 7 p.m. April 14th at the Katanning Senior High School, 1200 Orr Avenue, Katanning. Parking is available in the school lot and participants can enter near the auditorium. For more information, please visit the Armstrong School District's website.